Welcome back, everyone. Game 1 went to the most dominant team in LPL history, Edward Gaming. Now, starting off this best of 5 with a bit of wind under their wings, question is, will Uzi be able to recover and finally overcome his demons in this set, or will EDG continue to show us why they are the best? Welcome back, everyone. Gentlemen, we have already got some news coming into this Game 2. We've got a substitution coming out of Royal Never Give Up. Your man, Karsa, is stepping off stage. We've got MLXG coming in for this game too.
And we have to talk about the difference between the two. Karsa is the good boy in Xiaohu's eyes. He's going to track and he's going to set things up. But MLXG has a mind on his own. They have been the better 2v2 in terms of raw dueling strength duo. And that's why we've seen MLXG play the entire way through. I think it's a good transition because that means they want to challenge Scout and they want to challenge Haro rather than just farm it out.
That's the thing. MLXG has a louder voice in what he wants to pick for himself. His style is essentially being able to track Haro. Obviously, Karsa had a problem with that this game around just because compositionally it didn't work out this time. So with Camille being a major pick, a major point of contention between both of these teams, I wonder if MLXG is going to go back to the Camille because he was the one that actually went towards that as a jungler in the first few weeks.
Yeah, we'll absolutely keep our eye on that champion. Of course, we do have to talk a little bit about Scout some more. His playoffs performance has been spectacular. So often we talk about him being a double-edged blade for Edward Gaming. Well, it seems like he's finally gotten rid of that worst half of the blade because he is playing out of his mind with the playoffs buff.
Exactly. And you know what? RNG going into this, they started banning out the best of his champions. Talia, he has an incredible win rate on that one, 75%. And of course, Azir was something that EDG even banned. They were saying, you know what, we have Swain for ourselves. We're putting it in the mid lane because it was Scout coming into the playoffs with the Swain pick doing incredibly well on it.
Yeah, I actually think you either first pick the Swain or you have to consider taking the Karma into it. There aren't a lot of counter picks into the Swain. If you let someone get that, they're actually going to win against most pushing matchups just because those Karmas, those Gallios, they don't have the damage to fight back.
It almost seemed as though RNG kind of played themselves a little bit with that last composition, saying, all right, EDG, we know the style that you want to play. We're going to let you play the style that you're so good at and have been playing for so many years, and we're just going to try to outskill you in these team fights. And that is a risky gambit.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually would have favored the Morgana had the composition around it been a lot more stronger. The jungle pick is what we were referencing to. That could be a lot more forward pressing. And then we already talked about Tom Kench or even the Lulu in the support position to allow them more space. So at least the Morgana could get her first item. If she gets Banner of Command or maybe Rod of Ages, depending on the build order, but this time around she was going pure support.
Yeah.
Then, okay, she gets mid lane pressure. Swain's going to have a difficulty in dealing with that. They don't even get to that point because the bottom lane is taken down in 8 minutes time.
And the problem with that first game draft was RNG tunneled too hard on trying to catch people out. They sacrificed lane potential, they sacrificed their own scaling to do it, and that just made it so easy for EDG. They only need to look for one thing, and that was the engage coming in. But I want to see RNG actually put more effort into building themselves a scaling composition. EDG, a team that does run out of steam. They're a tempo-based team, and if you can hold 2 waves like RNG almost did, you have a chance to come back.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have the mention that Edward Gaming, they seem to really have a sweet spot. It's between those 20 and 30 minutes when they are their most lethal, when they've already got a few turrets ahead of the enemy team. They take neutral objectives. The Baron has spawned, and they can just break open the map.
And remember, EDG is the second fastest team at being able to take those turrets, averaging at 2+ at the 20-minute mark. Invictus Gaming is the only team that is just better at them in being able to achieve that. So RNG have the same stats that we do. They recognize what the mindset is going to be. So Caitlyn is a stock standard pick for iBoy. They already took away the Varus, but I want to see them challenge both of them. And if they're not going to challenge them, at least challenge them in the laning phase rather than looking to just outscale with the 2 picks that they had.
Yeah, this is the worst thing about RNG drafts is that they never give enough priority to Uzi, and I actually think Uzi calls that out himself. He's basically like, hey, coach, wait on. I'm going to see what he picks first. That's actually what Uzi does. But a lot of times when you have a draft like that, there's only Xayah, Caitlyn, and Kog'Maw left in the meta. I feel like you could go take away the Caitlyn and just punish whatever EDG wants to do. And that's how they won against IG in that last game. They blue side finally first picked the Varus. That's the first time they ever did that, the entire split. I was like, finally, RNG are growing up, but they fall short of that.
Perhaps it was just those game 1 blues that they know this is a best of 5 and they've got the chance to come back. Because again, you don't just overcome your biggest demon with a single upset, a single shrug of the shoulder. It's a lot of hard work to finally overcome those challenges. And it always has been the case for Edward Gaming to be RNG's demon.
Yeah, and you know what? RNG, I think the work they put into the Game 1 draft was great up until the second phase. So I want to start with the Morgana pick. The moment it comes through, that's a flex pick. Of course, you can run it in the mid lane or bottom lane. I would love it to be put in the bottom lane. They had the access to go towards Caitlyn early on, so they could have had access to Caitlyn Morgana, knowing that EDG probably would have just gone towards the Rakan and Xayah, which you should be happy about getting for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think right now RNG has the opportunity to pick themselves those priority bottom lane picks. They are foregoing it. This time around, going back on blue side, they have a second chance at it. I want to be able to see if they can get it.
And we heard a lot of cheers coming out from MLXG. He still is the crowd favorite here, especially in Chengdu, where we have so many spicy hot pots.
Absolutely. He's going to get himself set up as quickly as possible. But we also saw Uzi stepping out on stage with a bit of a smile next to Ming. And we know that Uzi is an emotional player. He knows it. You know it. Everybody knows it. It's how he deals with his emotions in these higher pressure situations that really defines how he and RNG as a whole will play. Seeing him smile here is a good sign.
Exactly. I mean, we had that interview. Frosterin sat down with Uzi, and he made mention of that it was getting better, and he wanted to be more of a leader in that sense. So, game 2, the fact that he is now, as you can tell, focusing at a good mental state. They need to be able to do that. They don't want themselves getting snowballed on, which has happened so frequently to them in the past.
Well, we're going to find out if he can recover in this game 2. Before we go, though, we've got a chance to hear what Uzi thinks about this matchup.
实力的一个 ADC， 而且自己的风格也非常的激进嘛，我觉得他会是一个非常有操作性的一个选手。在我当时打职业的时候，我也是跟他差不多非常喜欢操作的一个选手吧，但是可能更多的需要去注意的就是团队方面的东西。
It's a massive compliment coming out from the king himself, and I think you said it best early in the season, Frosker. It's very rare you actually hear Uzi mention the enemy team's AD carry during an interview.
Yeah, he always says Invictus Gaming's ADCs or Edward Gaming's ADCs. If the king says your name, you have been blessed.
But he also said that he is like old Uzi, which means there is a lot of hubris to be discussed when you look at iBoy. We even saw that in the first game.
We saw it in one of the top lane skirmishes, iBoy extending a little bit too further, but after that, he was kept a little bit more on a leash, was able to play out the rest of the game fantastically. We even saw the micro interactions between him and Scout, showing that there is some synergy between the two carries in the team.
And we all said that this was going to be about the bot lane, but it was about the different roads that we took towards the bot lane. Edward Gaming put so many resources into Scout, and Scout stepped up with those resources to create space for iBoy and Mako. Now I want Xiaohu to step up for Uzi on the other side. He has promised the Kwong Xiaogo a championship so many times. It's time that Xiaohu make good on his promise.
Yeah, he has, but I will say that he was given a responsibility in that first game. I don't know how much I would credit that to Xiaohu in particular, and I have a feeling, and you saw it on his face when he was walking onto the stage, he was a stone cold killer. He looked deadly serious, and this second game, I think he wants to Swain. He wants to carry, and we know full well from what we've seen of him in the playoffs that he absolutely can and should.
But he's got a little bit more backup now coming onto the Rift, because last match he had Kasa playing in his back pocket and he was tracked down by Haro. But now we've got MLXG, the coin flip, if you will. He can pull out something spectacular for game number 2, or potentially boost the lane in the mid lane for R&D to try and get that avenue into the bottom lane.
I mean, the elephant in the room is that MLXG is not that coin flip right now. In playoffs, he has been MLX Jesus. This guy has been incredible. Some of the best Gragas play that I have ever seen in League of Legends. So if he goes towards that pick, if he grabs something like a skirmish, just expect to see MLXG in top tier 2016 MSI form.
And this game should be top form from RNG. Remember, for EDG, Clearlove is still waiting in the wings, but you could look at both junglers that started this set and say that they were the first person, they were the wild card getting thrown in to throw a spanner in the works, maybe disrupt the balance. But now you've got the real deal coming in for RNG from playoffs so far in MLXG, and this should be 100% their highest skill possible.
No, Clearlove is known as the pig. MLXG is known as the spider pig, and he's up against the baby pig of Haro, who, as we said, he had a good start to the game. He was able to track Kasa, but we mentioned those mistakes he made, they were punished quite effectively by RNG. Now he's up against MLG SB equally as careful, because we know that he can punish even harder than what Kasa could do.
Again, it's very different styles, and you said it at the very top of the day, Fish, that MLXG usually comes in with a very sculpted prepared plan for level 1, whether it's an invade or some sort of weird pathing, and already a priority pick of Olaf.
Olaf locked in very early for RNG. This is something that we saw MLXG use in the jungle in their match, or first match, against Snake Esports in the quarterfinals of playoffs. And he had an interesting strategy. Didn't work out too well for them, but was able to bounce back from it too.
And already adaptations, Trundle banned, Olaf picked. Olaf is a champion that we said super high priority to take away from Haru if you're going to play the Galio, but it's also something that you can play yourself. And this is the interesting thing coming into this second draft phase. They do forego the Swain. Full acknowledgement that it was going to be picked by EDG again, and they choose the Olaf for MLXG. And looking past that, I think we're going to get a carry in the mid lane against that Swain.
Yeah, that's the question, is what type of responsibility is Xiaohu going to pick up? Is he going to be put on the back burner where he's going to be left after secondary ban phase, where his champion pool is going to get pinched? Is he going to be the guy that has to flex, or will they finally give the little tiger the ability to carry?
And just to run through those bans once again, Talia as well as Varus taken away. That's what we expect against EDG. Trundle now being taken away from Haru. Had a good game 1 and MVP performance in that match. To the side of EDG, Karma's still gone. Kai'Sa, Uzi's not getting that champion. Tatai will not be able to play on the top side of the map with Caitlyn and Swain locked in for EDG. And there's that carry. Rise is locked in the mid lane for Xiaohu, his most played champion.
Very early answer from Xiaohu. He's a superstar on the rise. Big plays can be made. He can leave his lane as well, something that Swain struggles at. And because Zatai is currently playing on Summoner's Rift, there's always a possibility of a flex.
Exactly that.
The Baron comp from RNG right now. So many times they've used the Abyssal Voyage as well as the Rise ultimate to reposition themselves from the mid lane immediately into the pit. You cannot leave the objective alone ever.
It's also very crucial for how RNG rotate into the bottom lane. 2 long distance ultimates to get behind turrets to make those flanking plays and upset the siege that's picked up by EDG. It's something that we saw from Rogue Warriors a lot during the regular split. Tahm Kench was nowhere to be seen during picks and bans of the last series. So was Alistar, priority pick for EDG support in Mako. Morgana does get locked in for EDG, however.
And now it's about sculpting that matchup for Xiaohu. I expect to see the Azir and the Cassiopeia punished again. Not that Rise can't deal with Azir into the lane phase. There is going to be a point where he'll start to brute force through it, but Azir just works way too well with the Caitlyn. So there's Cass. I expect the Golden Chicken next.
Remember, the Caitlyn picked, the Kog'Maw gone, the Varus gone, as well as the Kai'Sa. They are targeting the AD carry pool right now, and they are trying to make Uzi uncomfortable. Not that he can't play champions, but there are some that they want to exploit with the composition that they've got right now. They may still look towards the Xayah as one of their remaining bans and try and force him on something uncomfortable. Remember that he doesn't play Jhin.
No, he does not. His most played champion was Varus during the regular split and was followed up by that Kog'Maw. So those are the 2 main picks gone, with Kai'Sa resurging as one of his priority picks, also banned out. We'll have to see what they pair up for him in the bottom lane. We know that he likes to play those hyper carries and has a Tahm Kench to protect him as well.
The last time they played Olaf from blue side, they actually did it with the Ezreal, and that was that cute, cheeky level 1 invade on the blue buff, trying to utilize the long-range Mystic Shot as well as the hammer throw from Olaf there. So at least recognizing that that was a possibility and saying, no, not today, not Uzi's Ezreal today.
You know, one of the biggest strengths of the Tahm Kench as well is bringing the AD carry with you that has some form of crowd control, perhaps like the Varus. Morgana denies that for the lane. There's always a chance. I'm going to say it's a small chance. Xayah is the most likely one, but you do get something like the Ashe from Uzi.
Potentially, and he has played at this split. 1 game on Ashe was played by Uzi. 5 games on Ezreal, his 3rd most played champion. But Xayah has been something that we said he struggled with early, but he has shown that he can play it recently. Finally, we also get Sejuani, picked up by Haru in the jungle.
And you still have the flex capabilities with the Swain. It wasn't the Azir that was finally banned, it was the Gangplank. So Edward Gaming have their pick of the litter. They could grab the Azir, they could synergize beautifully with the Caitlyn Morgana composition, or Scout can pick up the Swain again and Ray can look for the counter option. Right now, Edward Gaming have all of the cards.
I mean, frankly, this is a Nara away from Exodia for EDG with a composition that they'd want to have for themselves. That's how strong it is.
There it is, you said it best. Ashe gets locked in for Uzi in the bottom lane.
But this is what I don't want to see. While I agree that the pick works here and Uzi is a great Ashe player, we see him game number 1, he takes the Kog'Maw, he's the carry, he's the big dog. And then suddenly game number 2, it's back to Ashe. And if you rewind towards 2017 summer, when he picked up the Ashe, he played horrifically.
The thing is, though, the Ashe can still carry. It's about unlocking Uzi in the lane. They no longer want to keep him down there. They want to set themselves up to leave their lanes and work with what is an exceptionally strong team fighting composition when you throw the Vladimir into the mix.
And you have to remember that this was the champion he's already played this split. Not just last year, but this split he's played it, and he won with the champion on top of that. He's got a Tahm Kench to protect himself, and RNG still can work with a couple of flex picks. Rise can go top side of the map, Vladimir can be put into the mid lane for Xiaohu, and Exodia is complete here, Rusty. Na gets locked in the top lane for EDG.
Attaboy. They're listening to me. They know Na's the greatest pick here because it can build the Hex Drinker if you need. It can build resistances in the way of magic resist regardless of what the lane is, and its range. So whilst it doesn't have a great matchup into Ryze, and traditionally Ryze would be the one swapped up there to play against it for a better matchup, it's still something that survives the lane and builds tank.
It means that there's also a change-up in terms of how Edward Gaming and RNG want to play the big 5v5. Yes, both these team compositions have strong 5v5s, but Edward Gaming is so much more around the CC lock, the ability to chain and to lock down and just annihilate opponents. If they don't get the big burst, if they don't use their CC correctly, RNG's composition will roll over in sustained fights. They have the Ryze, they have the Vladimir, they have the Ashe.
And that's exactly what RNG's playstyle is. They want to catch EDG by surprise, and if they do that, they can't set up that CC. They can't set up their plays, and that's where it's going to falter and allow to tick over in RNG's favor. But EDG showed in the last match, time and time again, even when they fall, they can pick themselves back up and set up for a fight once more.
EDG did have a super strong game one when you look at the draft, when you look at the style and how clean they were when they executed. RNG did come into this second game. They did shore up a lot of the weaknesses they had through that draft. MLXG is in. They are set to be at full power, and this is the clash of the Titans where styles do clash with it.
Rendon said it best at the start of today. This is the El Clasico now of the LPL. Gone, long gone are RNG against Team WE. It's all about RNG and EDG. Been so many finals here. RNG trying to look for their second victory. EDG trying to collect trophy after trophy, try and head back to MSI, try and pick up another one there and tie the score against SKT.
Yes, it is a tale as old as time, but ultimately, if RNG lose here, you're then at match point for Edward Gaming, and you brought in your secret weapon. The only thing they've got left in the tank is Let Me, so it is do or die for RNG for me in game number 2.
And then they have to do what EDG did to them last split. Last split, RNG were at match point 2-0, and EDG came out with the reverse sweep. The rookie of iBoy took down the king, and Uzi said it again this split. You have to beat me to take the finals. And again, this is his chance once more. iBoy can step up, can take down Uzi, send it to match point. Let's get on to the Rift for game number 2. And it's chaos again. 12,000 fans have packed out the arena here in Chengdu. They have been screaming before the show even started. As soon as Uzi, MLXG took the stage for the first time, even before the opening ceremony, they were screaming and cheering. There are banners everywhere and it's completely lit up.
And the arena is split. There are RNG fans on one side, there are EDG fans on the other side, and both teams face their respective fan bases. So you're looking right into the eyes of the people cheering you on if you want to lift the trophy.
And you mentioned the possibility here. They went down in game 1, reverse sweep may be required, but they do want to win here, RNG. They do want to set themselves up to succeed here. And when you look at the draft, when you look at the composition, it isn't the strongest early game from them once again. There is always a possibility that EDG can start to run over them, but they have shored up some weaknesses. MLXG on the Olaf is the biggest difference.
Yeah, the scales have already tipped, and you can see that MLXG is having a rather curious pathing and start here.
Yes.
Now, Sejuani does have better control over the Scuttle Crab, and usually she likes to prioritize that vision, but of course Olaf is the skirmish and dueling heavy jungler, and already getting a springboard on Sejuani with a wolf into blue start.
They would have started the blue buff, they would have taken that one down. Haro went over towards his side of the map.
And the vision to
Picks
spot
up
him.
Red buff. So they know that Haro has done this. MLXG knows that his blue buff is going to be taken away.
It's not unsurprising, however, that Haro is going to be there. It doesn't mean that RNG can respond to that whatsoever. Once again, Na can push in the top lane. Swain can control and match the mid lane. So it will just be vertical jungling to be seen. Olaf tends to be a little bit faster with that, where the Sejuani also excels at skirmishing. They've just chosen to not meet each other at all.
But what's great about this is by creating a strong side of the map, it means that iBoy and Mako need to play passively. They can't unleash the full power of Caitlyn Morgana across from Ashe and Tom Kinch. Now, Ashe is one of the long-time counters of Caitlyn, able to match the push there, but when you do have vertical jungling like this, it automatically says to iBoy and Mako, no help is coming, we have zero control over the bottom river, you actually just have to play passive here.
We'll keep track of that lane. So far, RNG are pushing in against EDG's Caitlyn as well as Morgana. Already mentioned the vertical jungling. Haro goes and picks up blue buff, gets Gromp for himself, and we saw aggressive trades coming out from Ray in the top side of the map, punishing to tie close to his turret.
And you will note that traditionally with Ryze in the mid lane, when they start with a mana crystal, they get 18 CS, they go back to base, they get a tier, and usually they'll teleport or walk back to lane depending on the tempo that they've got. In this instance, he chooses not to recall. What he chooses to do is get a ward on the Scuttle Crab. He now knows that that's free. MLXG can actually control both Scuttle Crabs, control both sides of the river, and open an avenue, open a completely free walkway for ganks.
Doesn't have the top side Scuttle Crab, but does have a ward in the exact location to provide that safety for Xiaohu. He is now going to go back to base. Should be able to pick up his own tier, but I really want to tunnel into this bottom lane. Because Caitlyn Morgana was a lane that surged internationally when 8.6 hit. It was something that we saw used against Zaya Rakan quite frequently, pushed them in, and was called a soft counter for a while, but teams learned how to play around it. And this matchup, however, you mentioned already, Frostgurn, that Ashe does have that historical counter pick against Caitlyn and is doing well here for Uzi as well as being in the bottom lane.
And then it's just about how they utilize these champions. The other thing is that normally when you unlock your ADCs and you start rotating them around the map after the first tower falls, Caitlyn is of course going to go into the top lane, continue to siege. With Ashe, you have the versatility that you can actually throw her into the mid lane and start chucking arrows from Fog of War and see what type of pick you get. And that works beautifully with a pick like the Ryze. So you just have to be aware that she changes how you play post lane phase.
Cast your mind back, the mid lane champion that would go up against that would have to pick up Cleanse
here we
or
go.
a QSS. And already MLSG being so aggressive, instead Haro turns onto Xiaohu. Xiaohu gets locked down, but he doesn't get stun procced. Haro underneath the turret, first blood to MLXG. Mala Siankor can smell more. Scout does tie it back up 1-1.
They trade 1-for-1. Ming even walking up here as well. The winner in the mid lane is Scout for certain, but MLXG through that jungle position gets a kill, has the CS advantage, has the experience lead, and now the 2v2 becomes even more crucial.
Yeah, again, the fingerprints left over from dividing the map, from deciding from minute one that they were going to give Uzi and Ming a good time, it now starts to bleed over into second rotation of buffs. MLXG is going to be in Edward Gaming's face for the rest of this lane phase.
And this is super important from MLXG. Scout wants to push and wants to recall. MLXG rather is able to hold this wave potentially and catch it so that his mid laner can come back and receive it. That actually equalizes a big part of an advantage that you would get as a mid laner after you win that 2v2.
Because Xiaohu was already able to pick up assists, some gold there. The single kill went over to Scout, but now Xiaohu does have the gold lead. What Scout does have, however, he still has both his summoner spells. Teleport was used to get Xiaohu back into the lane. Now Scout can swap over and do the exact same thing.
Now they're going to try to force the flash from Xiaohu here, but the actual big power spike that Haro and Scout want to play around is of course Sejuani's ultimate. So Haro is kind of gambling here. He doesn't have many camps to farm, but he needs to start racing towards that level 6 so he can open up kill pressure and find something back for Edward Gaming in this early lane phase.
They have to be careful because they have been able to get behind Ryze at the moment. Xiaohu's going to take some damage.
He's in.
He just
Blocks
wants to
down
flash.
Scout, charges in, does get the knockback. Xiaohu is going to be pulled back here by Scout underneath the turret. Ray is even going to try and join this one. Meganar's coming up shortly, but Xiaohu survives. He gets away just burning the flash.
He's got the fancy feet, Xiaohu. You give him the Ryze, he'll be able to make the plays happen. Being able to survive there is super crucial when you bring Ray down, when you dive and you use summoner spells even to secure that one. You trade health with your mid laner that's just teleported that may need to recall as well, and suddenly the balance and the upsets on the map and the tempo completely shifts.
Yeah, and the tempo's also shifted now where RNG aren't up and ready to contest this blue buff that's spawning. Now Xiaohu and MLXG have made their backs. You can see Tom Kench also wanting to get in. We'll see if this has created enough time and enough space for Edward Gaming to actually lock down their buffs, or if RNG are going to get in position to contest again.
MLXG is 20 CS ahead and level 6 right now compared to Haro with no health, level 5 and recalling. Honestly, there should be very few situations where EDG can hold that blue buff just because MLXG is everywhere.
And you'd expect that that's where most of the gold lead that RNG have picked up in the early game lies. 7 minutes in, it's 1-1 in kills, but it's 11,500 to 10,300 gold in RNG's favor. MLXG did start on EDG's blue side of the jungle, taking Wolves first, now going back to blue buff, which he took second.
He's never going to see that buff.
Haro did play it well. Read that he could be on the bottom side of the map, went straight over towards MLXG's blue, took that for himself. Now he's trying to contest against a level 6 Olaf. Smite goes down, denies blue buff from Haro, takes it away from Scout as well.
Exactly, taking it away from the mid laner that is a Swain that wants to spam spells and constantly push. And MLXG is not done.
Yeah.
He is still going towards the Wolves. He is still trying to track him down. Scout has to come over.
That's where they brawled last time. Mako, iBoy, Scout, everyone rotates to try and protect Haro. And MLXG is is exposing him in game number 2.
And we're starting to see, why Sejuani fell down in game number 1 in terms of priority. You said it yourself, Fish. She is 3 times more likely to be picked by both these teams than any other team in the LPL.
Make it stop.
But it's very clear what's been happening in scrims, that you cannot just auto-pick Sejuani and have complete control over both Scuttle Crabs as well as your jungle. Olaf is just destroying this right now.
Ray has rotated down, looking to try and lock down. Actually, Ragnarok is available. They might just be trying to take that ultimate away
Oh,
from him.
hold him
got him.
Locked down, pulled back by Scout, away from the Rise
That's
ultimate,
cute.
but he's
Yeah.
fine. How much he gets out fine.
Nice little interaction there, but the Raptors were still contested, and that is what matters in the end the most for the side of RNG. MLXG has his whole jungle to go back to because he's been living in Harrows.
But he's not. He's going straight back towards the mid lane. Predator was used, trying to lock down Scout, misses the pullback. It does give Xiaohu some breathing room to continue pushing in mid lane. They might just cheat towards bottom side.
Yeah, exactly what the analyst desk was talking at top of day. This is how RNG want to play this. They want to either kill Swain or force him underneath his tower and then get the inside track towards bot lane. And Uzi and Ming have been left completely to their own devices. Super happy down there, 92-69 between Ashe and Caitlyn.
And a lot of the difference as to why the Swain was able to trade so well in game number 1 is because he had the trunk. He didn't have the Sejuani, who is decent at skirmishing, decent at trading, but was exposed by an early Olaf, prevented a 2v2 from happening for quite some time.
Well, getting back into this bottom lane where Uzi, every single time iBoy tries to step up to pick up a minion for himself, he goes in for an auto attack, constantly harassing. 98-76 CS at the moment.
I mean, this is the problem with teams like Royal Never Give Up, like Invictus Gaming, these triple threat teams in the LPL. You basically pick your poison. Are you going to ban away the Kai'Sa, or are you going to ban away the Olaf? Either way, one of them is getting through, and one of them is going to be a massive problem.
And then Uzi shows once again, you can take away as many champions as you want. I can still play every other AD carry in the book and more. Vayne can still be picked up for all we care. He was hovering it during the earlier champion selects. And we know that there's a deep champion pool and shows mastery on multiple different champions. Haven't seen too much of the top side of the map, however, as Ray has been very aggressive against Tatai, but Tatai will slowly scale up as this Vladimir.
Normally the Gnar will hold the push, will constantly keep the Vladimir under the turret, may get himself a 10 CS lead, or it'd never be something super significant, but he's actually behind in farm because of the amount of time he has spent leaving lane, trying to help Haro. You're seeing a legitimate bleed over effect right now of all of EDG trying to round up with their jungler and keep him in the game. And that is affecting them across the board.
And this is much more what we saw from Edward Gaming domestically. Yes, they came in as the first seed from the Western Conference, but as Clement said, that was only until week 9. EDG were bleeding out the standings, usually sitting around 4th place in the LPL, and a lot of it was on the back of Haro and their inability to protect him and prop him up as the newest member in the squad.
It did sell in game 1, but LXG,
Oh
he's
my
got him
God.
covered in this match. 2 levels above, and every time he tries to take Wolf Camp, MLXG's there. That belongs to him. That's his spot.
Tell him on the bottom.
But EDG are looking for a fight in the bottom lane. Uzi not flashing away just yet. Ming's going to be able to devour him to keep him safe. He flashed out of that nice and early. All of Maker's crowd controls you,
They're all
and
in.
they turn onto Morgana. Tatai is here. Rage joined the fight as well, but it's EDG that retreat because Lightning is being slammed down from the Ragnarok of Olaf. MLXG wants to continue chasing. RNG get the 2 picks to the bottom lane, and they're going to continue pushing for this turret.
And this is what you need to understand, is that Uzi is the puppet master in the bottom lane. Ming answers to him, and Uzi puppeteered that beautifully. The fact that he holds his flash, Tahm Kench finds the yeet, repositions himself, and then uses Tahm Kench to body block the Dark Binding.
Give me the strings, then I will make them dance. Uzi calls his team to the bottom side of the map, counters the play thrown out by EDG. They pick up a nice lead for themselves.
They have the turret that was low in the bottom lane. They're able to crash that one down through a strong engage, countering the teleports, of course, of EDG. But it's not just the tower, it's a lead for the 2v2. It's a Tahm Kench Ashe that can roam around the map very effectively now that turret is gone. It's a dragon on top of all of that, and that is a monumental lead.
And again, all eyes here. The fact that Uzi is holding his ultimate, he doesn't want to throw it to the Black Shield, gets repositioned by Ming. Ming grabs the Dark Binding, nothing to protect Morgana, walks through with the arrow, and walks through with the team fight.
Yeah, super clean from RNG's bottom lane 2v2. Xiaohu also having the stopwatch awareness of the time in the game, has it available to be used as well, and starts to frontline as the Rise sets himself up to succeed.
And we're now in a situation where Morgana and Caitlyn didn't get the first tower. So finding success with the Ashe Kench counter, and also getting a huge helping hand from MLXG, splitting that map. Very creative jungle pathing to set RNG up on the right foot at 12 minutes in the game.
And last match we talked about how Mako was such a key component of EDG, not just when he picked up the counter of Zac in the Janna pick in the bottom lane, but also how he needs to play it correctly because he's such a big pillar for them, a keystone almost. and in that fight, he was not able to get the execution he wanted. Burnt a flash, but that's it. Died right off the bat and was not able to help out EDG in the fight.
No MLXG, no problems for the enemy blue buff as well. Xiao, who's able to solo that one out.
Himself.
Gonna lock that one down, go back towards mid lane. Now he also has control of mid potentially with that. Wants to roam around the rift, has even rushed magic resistance to survive mid lane for the purpose of grouping for team fights. And he has an ultimate, whilst neither mid laner has a teleport, so he can still get places fast.
And I know we've harped on this stat quite a bit, but again, iBoy is a double-edged sword. If he doesn't pick up that gold lead at 15 minutes, he loses the match for the team. But EDG are going to try and force a fight topside. Ming, casual, just sidesteps the ultimate coming out from Haro. Saves Uzi. Uzi still has flash available. It's going to try and get away from this, but he's against a wall. Mako goes forward. Ash Hour gets thrown out. Still trying to lock him down, and they do so successfully. But everyone from RNG is rotating. They don't have to tie, and Scout is slowly joining this fight. EDG have to be patient. Haro's the first target to take it down. Scout pops his ultimate, tries to go forward, pulls back the spicy hot pot. Tom Kedge doesn't get out this fight either. EDG force, and they get 3 kills.
EDG bounce back massive. They catch RNG overextending, catch them not wanting to fight just there. And even with all of the fancy feet that RNG had for themselves, the 2v2, there was just too many members. They were overwhelmed completely. And now EDG actually get to bounce back from a place that was very dire.
Yeah, poor map read from RNG. The fact that Zatai doesn't have TP, you can see it's just about to come off of cooldown on the top left-hand corner of your screen. So while EDG win out massively in the team fight, I guess RNG's Zatai is the real winner because he just got to free farm bottom lane and reset the wave.
He did 122 CS and has already reset, picked up the Shurelia's Reverie as his first item on Vladimir. But this is exactly what we say about EDG. If they can set up a team fight, they will win it.
And you can see exactly what Haro is thinking here. Yes, it's fancy footwork by Ming, but he wants to lock down the Tahm Kench because of that right there, the ability to reposition. But so much is committed here to finally crack Uzi. Super important that they got both the summoner spells because we're coming closer to the game where not only is the next Drake going to be up for battle, but also the Baron coming that much closer, and these key summoners won't be available.
Scout also getting up here at the correct time to ensure the follow-up was there, routing them, making sure that all 5 are here, and that it was just a big mismatch from RNG, who were trying to trade after their bottom lane was caught, keeping the numbers in EDG's favor, even if the cooldowns were not.
Perfect timing and a clean executed play coming out from EDG. Stops the bleeding a little bit, but there's still 3,000 gold behind RNG, who picked up the first turret of the game. EDG have yet to pick up their own, currently putting Caitlyn as well as Morgana in the mid lane. As you said earlier, Frostgrid, Ashe allows RNG the opportunity to park that AD carry in the mid lane and look for those picks with the ultimate.
Yeah, it's just a very different dynamic, which means your eyes then have to be on Xiaohu. We need to make sure that the Ashe arrow is connecting and chaining with some serious damage, which would be this Rise. So as Rusty was saying, the blue buff gives him the opportunity to have the wave control. Push it forward and then start making those roam plays, either blitzing in behind MLXG or cheating towards the mid lane to team up with the Ashe arrow.
And I will say, when you look at the entire composition, the Ashe is super important for damage output right now. The Rise has built resistances to survive lane and leave lane, but his damage contribution is low unless he has the entire roster there. Zatai being missing was a big problem in the last engage as well. He's here now. They can threaten away from a structure. They need to have extra members cycling through constantly to deal damage, whilst Xiaohu supplements that by being faster and being tanky with the push.
Well, they got Rift Herald early, and again using the 0-3-2 strategy to continue pushing this one out, rotating to tie in towards the mid lane this time around, and now they're moving towards top side of the map. MLXG and Xiaohu are going to try and take down this turret.
And just a super late response from Edward Gaming. The thing is that EDG look like the best team in the LPL when they have the tempo, when they get to play their game. If they get time to set up, to make their plans, they're one of the few LPL teams that can plan 2, 3, 5 minutes in advance and then execute on it. If you ever push them on the back foot, if you force them to skirmish you, to constantly try to battle, they just don't have the synergy between their new members of Ray and Haro. They will fall down and they'll struggle to catch back up.
But they did show that they can do exactly what RNG tried to do in game number 1. They did find a fight a couple of thousand gold behind and pulled it back slightly in their favor. RNG again is showing that they can still be aggressive despite a couple of hiccups. And again, we have to mention how even these two teams are. Statistically, the numbers are so even between across the board in all positions, and they have very similar win rates during the regular split.
Yeah, let me break it down to you. In terms of finals, it's 2-1. Edward Gaming 2 finals to RNG's 1 final in 2016 spring, where Uzi was not on the roster. But in terms of playoff games, it's 8-8. It's dead even, which just goes to show that when Edward Gaming, the reason why they're considered the thorn in RNG's side is because they hit them at the right moment every single time. It's just the single games that matter.
And that is the power spikes for these teams as a style choice once again. You look towards the 20 to 30 minute mark for EDG. You look towards 0 to 10 and then 30 to 40 for RNG. That's where they'll win the games. That's where they'll scale up, get those big team fights, and their individual strengths start to shine through the brightest. And right now, we've had the RNG spike in this game. We've had that really good moment for them, and then we saw a hiccup. And that hiccup was during a time in the game where EDG are traditionally quite strong.
And they are still strong at the moment, but they're trying to weather the storm against a 4,000 gold deficit. MLXG is able to pick up an Ocean Dragon for RNG, second elemental dragon of this match. RNG is still pushing on the top side of the map. That turret is incredibly low. A couple more minion waves would be able to take that down.
Ultimately, you're not looking at the ADC power spikes, you're looking at the mid laners as well as the top laners and the junglers in the case of MLXG. We're getting closer towards that Baron, and it's going to be a 0-3-2, I imagine, again from RNG for the setup.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's a complete shutout from EDG in terms of the objectives they can take. All of the outer turrets are still standing from RNG, and when you look at realistically, how are they even going to get to those turrets? You might have Ray sneak one away here and there on the side lanes, but he won't be able to contribute to mid lane. The real answer is they need a pick, they need a team fight, they need to actually get a numbers advantage and set up, because Vision doesn't even cut it anymore. They're just defensive.
And this might be where they're punished for not taking the Azir, or instead looking for the Gnar. Their fallback option for defending and stalling this game out is going to be that red side Raptor camp. It's basically where Mako is standing right now on your map. So many times that is the last stand for red side to stall out the game long enough where their carries can start competing in these 5v5s again. But with the Rise ultimate, with the Abyssal Voyage, with the Ash Arrow, RNG have so many tools to crack any sort of stall that EDG could front.
Even a Vladimir teleport available for Tatai to find a nice flank. And he is farming a Storm. 176 CS, picked up a kill for himself, has been involved in taking down turrets for the side of RNG. He's looking very strong. Whereas for the side of Ray, he's back on the Gnar. 1-0-2, he's having a decent game himself, but we haven't seen the high-impact team fights that Gnar can bring just yet. And there is that siege, working around the Raptor camp 20 minutes into the match.
Red buff is a fairly large priority for both of these teams, and opportunities like that, getting the ultimate out of MLXG is something that could mean a great deal in the next coming minutes, when Baron was actually something that RNG were looking to set up for as Uzi.
Uzi's rotating down towards bottom side of the map.
He was spotted by Vision.
AD carry is looking for the flank. Ray slows him down, trying to get the hyperfrost, but locked down by the ultimate from Uzi, chasing him forward. Hail of Aaron's going to be enough. RNG get a pick in the bottom lane.
That was just purely a gamble. Ray had the flash, Uzi had the arrow. Who was going to use what first? And we saw the arrow connected before the flash came out. Ray dies, and that opens up the map so much more for RNG on the bottom side, but it does give EDG a chance to push a little bit closer in Baron.
And this is where RNG's roster really thrives. It's the ability to separate, segment the map, and to find those picks. And it's Ray and Haro that they've been picking on. Again, the newest members to the EDG squad. They just don't have the cross-map synergy to protect themselves from plays like that.
And they're now moving 4 members in the bottom lane with a Banner of Command minion, take down another inner turret for themselves. We just saw that at 20 minutes, the average gold lead that RNG have against their opponents is about 1,074 gold. Now, on average, they close out games with 2,000 to 3,000 gold of a lead. And this is a team that is known as the 2 team fight team. You pick up 1 team fight, that gets you that lead. The second one's going to close it out. And when we were watching the game against Invictus Gaming, this is a team that closes out games with 8,000, 9,000 gold to be said. It's not necessarily a bad thing for RNG, because it shows with a small lead, they can crush opponents. Now they've got a big lead against EDG. Almost 7,000 gold up. This is something they can work with to close out a game.
They can absolutely take the maximum once they start to accrue those leads for themselves. And now they've got the bottom lane turret. It's an extended lane, super long and difficult for Ray to navigate against a Vladimir. You find an opportunity for the Baron to actually become a higher priority for RNG and a little bit easier to place the Vision down towards. Or it's just a bit more difficult for EDG to not use their teleport in these situations.
You can see the gold on your screen. 1,000 top side of the map. 1,000 in the jungle. 2,000 in the mid lane for Shao. And even 1,000 on Uzi in the bottom side of the map. EDG are struggling in every single position at the moment, and they haven't had the ability to set up for a play. They defended the red side stall, they got red buff for himself and took MLXG's ultimate, but that's all they got in that play.
So what we're looking for now is how RNG are going to break the stall, is what you're talking about. So either looking for, they're going to just immediately rush and reposition onto the Baron with tools like the Abyssal Voyage with the Rise ultimate, or they're going to use those ultimates, these long-range globals, offensively and make a pick as they're continuously pushing top and mid lane, trying to catch Edward Gaming cheating around their red jungle. EDG, you're basically playing on a knife's edge. You've got one chance here to scale up, and if you're caught here, it's going to be the Baron.
Absolutely, and their composition isn't the best at engaging. Except that.
They catch iBoy, the Black Shield's not going to be there in time. It's a tie, gets a flank as well. The 80 carry from EDG is going to fall, and RNG get a pick in the mid lane.
And you can see how the composition works. We see Vladimir rush the Reverie all the time, and it's able to close the gap there and take advantage of the Black Arrow.
Let's go to Baron, or top side of the map, where RNG decided to try and take another turret for themselves. They left their 80 carry unprotected though, and EDG tried to force a fight. However, Ming as well as Uzi able to escape without using any summoners of their own. They continue sieging top side of the map.
Exactly, they do still have the Tahm Kench for Uzi, and we were talking towards EDG's perhaps lack of engage against the Tahm Kench. Well, now we can see RNG's engage with the Ashe being available, catching them out of position.
And do not misunderstand me. I do not think that Morgana is the reason why we've seen both these losses, but I do want to point this out to the audience, that the LPL has had a very troubled history with Morgana as a pick. It has never really caught on here. Yes, as we saw it globally in 2018, we were forced to kind of grab it, but the thing is our supports built themselves off of our Alistars, off of our Annies, off of these big, aggressive, going combos. Morgana is not that type of playstyle, and while Mako is playing it okay, it is definitely a very different vibe and a very different style. You give power to the ADC, but so much of what makes our bot lanes the scariest in the world is that support.
And we didn't see the Alistar come out for EDG. This is something that we thought, alongside Sejuani, could be one of the highest contested picks in this series. Kai'Sa as well, permanently banned out by EDG, but they have not picked up their Alistar, which RNG have allowed them to take if they won in both series so far.
Yeah, when you speak towards adaptation in a series, you've acknowledged now that Morgana can be flexed from RNG into two positions. The priority started to rise from EDG. They go towards it in an earlier pick with the Caitlyn. Good duo, great lane, something we often see globally as well in most of the major regions. Caitlyn Morgana was a pick in Azaya Rakan. Yep. Well, now we see it as a blind pick because they seem to have prioritized the Morgana highly.
We think that it would work well against Tahm Kench, but Uzi says, you know what, Ashe is going to be able to counter that lane, does well for them. We saw Uzi's stats as well. From regular season to playoffs, his stats have gone much higher. He does more damage per game. He has a higher KDA as well. And the spring buff for RNG is strong. Not only helping out Xiaohu, he's been a monster during playoffs, but Uzi has stepped up to another level as well.
2,000 career kills on the board for Uzi in playoffs. He silenced any of the haters when he picked up the Xayah, something he was heavily criticized for not playing in the World Championship. A lot of Chinese fans going so far to say that that's what cost them against SKT. And he now has the Pocket Kai'Sa that's been perma-banned this series. Uzi is having the split of his career.
He is so strong right now with 3 completed items, as well as Xiaohu in the mid lane on that rise has 3 of his own. When you contrast that with their opponents, they are so far ahead in the carry positions that honestly RNG, they place the line in the sand with vision and they dare EDG to come at them, and that's a team fight that you'll take.
Top side map, already a flash being thrown away by Xiaohu as he goes aggressive against Ray, still trying to split push on the bottom side here. RNG are going to keep sieging this mid lane inner turret. That gets taken down nice and easy.
Yeah, and they're denying Edward Gaming any attempt to stall here by refusing to play the Baron dance at all, or at least creating more space for them by acquiring the inner top and inner mid tower, so it's that much easier, which is a very smart and patient maneuver from RNG.
Almost feels like they're looking for item power spikes as well. Rabadon's Death Cap being picked up by Tsutai off the back of that last play. Now 3 items being completed by Uzi. Even Xiaohu has the Void Staff ready to get damage onto the tank front line of EDG.
The vision control is so strong right now that they're actually using the Ashe Hawkshot to feign Ashe ultimates. He is Hawkshotting the enemies from point blank to scare them into using the Black Shield, and then you know what's coming afterwards, so you have to back away. The fact that you can do that as an Ashe shows what point in the game that you are at and how strong you're feeling. And right now, they've taken the mid lane inner turret just by vision control, just by pressuring and poking them down and threatening constantly. That extends to the Baron far more easily now that all of the inners are gone, and there is very little left for EDG to hold on to.
And still playing 4 members strong top side of the map, pushing in mid lane constantly, keeping Xiaohu in the bottom lane, who is split pushing and making sure that Ray is kept occupied down here, and just pushing in waves. resetting, playing around the red buff, and continuing to execute this. If EDG don't break this stall, RNG are just going to acquire a massive gold lead, and they already are 10,000 gold ahead.
And there's a lot of pressure on Ray right now. He needs to make sure that he's kept safe so he doesn't get popped on by Uzi again, or more importantly, the Tom Finch. He needs to make sure that he gets the TP timing right, because fighting in that red side jungle, if he gets the massive Gnar ultimate, is the turn that Edward Gaming are looking for.
You know, the thing is, when you navigate team fighting right now as EDG, if you even get that pick, if it's not on Uzi, you're probably still going to lose a 4v5.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at the itemization choices of EDG, it's magic resistance to survive the team fighting. The game plan is kill Uzi, kill him quick, and maybe you get the team fight.
But 7 minutes and 40 seconds after Baron spawns, RNG finally make their first attempt towards the objective. Was spotted out by Scout's vision. Knowing that RNG have started that Baron buff, they disengage, look for a fight, but again, it's Mako in the front lines with the black shield ready in case Uzi wanted that arrow.
It's actually interesting at this point in the game that Xiaohu is sitting on the cleanse as opposed to the TP and having them run a double teleport threat. In fact, the fact is that Zatai is also sitting on cleanse, so giving so much respect to Haro and giving them so much more safety in these side lanes to constantly have pressure up and denying any sort of pick potential.
Also feels like RNG are very comfortable in the way they manipulate their lanes and look for these fights. They don't need to teleport flanks, but they go for a fight against Haro. In fact, Zatai flashing forward, easy kill being picked up. That's the jungle that's gonna fall. Heal comes out, black shit as well, trying to keep it alive. The arrow, not gonna be arranged for the snipe, but RNG get Baron buff on the back of that play. Xiaohu's looking to try and reinitiate as well. Ming's gonna save Zatai. No kills take place, but a major objective to RNG.
Yeah, they get the Baron buff, and whilst nobody dies from either Haro or from Zatai, they're both able to disengage, and with that major buff available, sieging is so simple for them to do. The threading multiple lanes is definitely there for them as well. They are set to succeed with this Baron and potentially just end the game with one fight.
Yeah, and reminder, we talked about this in game number 1, and you may get the opportunity to see it in game number 2. RNG are our best team in the LPL at closing out simply because of how they can time all of the waves to crash at once. They are great at flooding the base with creeps, and especially good at using the dropship capabilities of Rise to reposition pressure points very quickly.
Yeah, in fact, we've often seen Xiaohu in the side lane for the most part lately as well, even without having the teleport available. Of course, Zatai hasn't gone one for himself. They keep Zatai closer. They've acknowledged the Rise can close the distance faster, and if he wants to come to side lanes, and note that RNG are pressuring mid and bottom for the most part. But here we go.
Try to collapse into MLXG. Ragnarok is available for Olaf, so as he clears out vision, he's immune to crowd control, and again, takes back some more for RNG, but now his ultimate is down.
But the most important part of all of this is still the mid lane control for the 3-man unit of RNG. Only 2 of them can rotate to a side lane, so the fact that they're trying to keep their jungler nearby shows where the pressure is. And you can follow the jungler on the minimap to acknowledge exactly where RNG are about to play towards.
They're still in that mid lane, 3 members strong. A 1-3-1 coming out from RNG, not going towards the 0-3-2 playstyle just yet. Xiaohu's already chipped away at this turret. A few more auto attacks will be enough to take that down. Ray goes into Mega Gnar, but it's too little too late. Xiaohu gets the turret for himself. They've broken the base against EDG.
And there you go, everything being sieged all at once. Edward Gaming didn't have the split-second decision-making to pick where they wanted to hit, and if they lose a team fight here, it's pretty much game. So deciding to fight another day while they lose their entire base.
You said it best earlier. EDG need a setup, and how do you set up when every part of your base is being attacked by RNG? Multiple fronts, multiple aggressive plays. First inhibitor's going to fall. The final inhibitor turret is under siege. Thomas the tank there chugging away, takes down the turret. Inhibitor is banned. Top side's going to fall for Zatai shortly after. And EDG, all they have left is their damn Nexus.
And they are running out of time. They're looking for Ray. He's got Mega Gnar.
They're still pushing forwards
as well. If you go, you go now.
One team fight. EDG have done it before against gold deficits similar to this. One stand to send them to match point or try and at least stop the bleeding here. But RNG, they're just so aggressive. They're so strong. Banner of Command is chipping away at these turrets. 1 by 1. MLXG in the backlines. Mako, he's already dead. They're towards their fountain, but it's too little too late. It is spicy here in game number 2 as Malas Youngboy steps onto the rift and dominates the early game. And Ace gets picked up. We're all tied up. 1-1.
The man on your screen said that this would go to a best-of-5, and he's kept his end of the promise and taken another game back. So far, it's been a slugfest. Very dominating game 1, very dominating game 2 on either side, and it feels like this is being decided in draft.
Yeah, RNG remove the linebacker. They bring in the finesse player in MLXG, which doesn't make any sense, but it's definitely the way that it was executed in this one. Aggressive, constant plays, and perhaps now the Turtle has to poke its head out. Clear Love has to exist, while RNG will continue to run over them.
And yes, the arena is split here. There are fans for both EDG, for RNG, two historical organizations. But the moment Uzi walked off of those stairs, there was cheers for him. They've now tied up the game 1-1. They no longer have to go up against match point in game 3. They have another game buffer in their hands if they need it.
And the blueprint has been revealed for Edward Gaming. Blitz into Haro's face, destroy him as the weak link. You had a triple threat composition with the Ashe to counter out the Caitlyn, Xiaohu on his signature Rise pick that is normally banned away from him, and then the Vladimir to amplify all of that damage. And it's just something that Edward Gaming don't have in the playbook. They are not as versatile as a team. RNG are the favorites here because they have the option to do this, and Edward Gaming do not.
Yeah, we've acknowledged that RNG definitely have an answer to the Sejuani available. We've seen that MLXG's got mastery of knowing where to be, and that their holistic draft, even if they have losing lanes, is able to compensate for that through the mid-jungle 2v2, through that duo specifically. Ashe able to control the bottom lane, they've got the draft. All of these things are great, but then you look at game 3 and you're like, well, we can control the Sejuani, but what if the Sejuani is Clear Love this time? And I think that's always going to be the lingering concern, even if we have seen what it looks like, what the playbook is from EDG. We haven't seen their complete playbook yet.
No, we have not. We've already seen one of the sixth men step onto the Rift in the form of MLXG, subbing in for game number 2. So able to pick up a phenomenal victory, and RNG tied the series 1-1. To break down a bit further, let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, guys. And would you look at that? It's not the 3-0 on either side. We've got ourselves a series on our hands as we have now got RNG coming back in game 2. And we heard it from the casters just a moment ago. This is not just play your strategy and play it out until the end. We're seeing some adaptations. We're starting to see some change in how these teams are playing, namely MLXG coming in and completely changing up not only the strategy, but also the draft for Royal Never Give Up.
Yeah, incredibly spicy, the fact that he was able to get the Olaf first pick. So he had a straight idea of what he was going up against because, I mean, Haro constantly goes towards the Sejuani, and if it's going to be the Olaf versus Sejuani, you can pick it apart.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the big thing we talked about RNG before in our A block. They try to fight through skirmishing. They take down. They don't care about side lane priority because this time around, even in both side lanes, EDG did have the pushing power. The reason they were never able to utilize it was once they pushed, they had to worry about someone chopping them down with the pork chop, and they just had to run away from that. So this is a very different approach on how RNG play the game. On EDG side, however, they have such a great team fight composition, and this is something that RNG countered perfectly well. They used the flex pick of the Rise and the Vladimir, and if you look at their late game itemization, they controlled the 1-3-1 perfectly. Morello Vladimir against the Swain top, and Rise naturally wins against the Gnar. So they got all of their win conditions right here in the draft.
I like the Morgana, but then you got it straight into the level 1, and it felt like the Morgana was chained underneath their own turret. The way that Olaf started blue side jungle and invaded that consistently. Had great timers on Sejuani, so there's no way for Sejuani to go in towards their own blue side jungle. In fact, first blood was given to Olaf just because a skirmish happened around there.
Yeah, that kill trade was actually incredibly important because it benefited MLXG to continue to control the jungle. Usually, if you see the enemy mid laner pick up the kill, you're like, hey, that's actually a good trade for EDG. Not this time around. This meant that he was getting renewed pork chops right off of Haro.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We do actually have that available as a replay for you to show you how that was set up. MLXG constantly invading Haro in that jungle time and again to keep constant pressure. Then the moment EDG decided, we've had enough of this, we're fighting back, RNG just collapsed.
Pure desperation because that's a teleport, spellbook, Rise, double TP going down immediately in the bottom lane because it was just in the fact that EDG said, we had enough of this, we need to stop the pressure from coming through, and it failed.
And it's really important to point out why EDG had to go in right there. If they didn't go in, they would have lost their first tower. And if you look around the map, there's a Tahm Kench Unleash, there's a Rise Unleash. Things are not going to get better. So they had to make a stand. Unfortunately for them, they were really far behind.
Yeah. It comes down to the fact that if you want to go for that punch, you have to bring in the Sejuani for that one. Through the lane, not through jungle, because she is getting consistently tracked from that one. Yeah. So bring Sejuani a little bit more. Have her so you can push out the lane and get a better flank ward, because the flank ward that Swain pulled out is not a flank ward at all.
Yeah.
It gave Uzi the ability to just walk straight out and reconvene with his own teammates. So either play it slowly, allow Sejuani to be there and push out so she can counter gank, get the TP ward down there, or just bring Sejuani and have the fight immediately. So
And
if that's a desperation play, you need to set up a little better. on
It
that.
seems like that's what we saw from
Yeah.
Edward Gaming in the top lane when they were able to take the successful fight, finding both Uzi and Ming. But even at that point, you saw once MLXG showed up, it was up to EDG to turn and run away from the Olaf, who could just chase them down to the ends of the earth. Still, though, after that advantage we saw picked up from RNG, they didn't just sit on their laurels. They used Edward Gaming's strategy against them, playing a tempo game, constantly pushing, constantly threatening Vision, not through the mid lane, well, although they did have that Uzi in there with the arrows to pick it off, but through MLXG and Ming, always stepping in, always fighting over wards.
Yeah, and they use that tempo to do exactly what you just said, to utilize the Ashe arrow.
Yeah.
Constant times having Ashe go bottom lane to pick up on Ray, so he had to move up onto there. That was great to see it. And then mid lane, specifically, you see Caitlyn walking up forward, which is really great. We don't get to see a lot of Ashe plays, and he utilized the terrain to allow himself to get the pick on towards Caitlyn. There was no way Morgana was going to be able to time that, because the moment it was in vision, it was already on top of him.
That was already really fast from Mako, but they just couldn't do it. The 1-3-1 collapses so well, and I think a lot of it is because of the variety they were talking in cast. They're able to go to a 0-3-2. Now, that's not a strategy. That's just a collapsed 1-3-1. I've always maintained that. But you can do that to make picks off here so well. And this is RNG's big strategy. They're actually looking for a lot more fighting, a lot more contact, a lot more confrontation. They want to break it down, so EDG don't have the time to set up for those big 5v5 plays.
And this seems to be where we start to come into the team identities once again. RNG, they're the superstars. They're the raw talent. They want to 1v1 you so that they can beat you. Whereas Edward Gaming, if they can set the play up, if they can play the intelligent 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute in advance, they can continue to snowball it. But it's when those raw mechanics come into question that we start to see Edward Gaming struggle.
That's why you have to take your stand if you're EDG. Because the raw mechanics are one thing, but if you allow them to take that first punch, as we mentioned at the top of show, then you will falter. So MLXG getting the pick, being able to go camp to camp to camp, you have to stop that. I want to see Haro or Clearlove, if we see the break, pick up another champion, or maybe a Skarner, so he can be a lot faster in
We're
rotation.
going to see what that's going to be. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, everyone. Don't go anywhere. We are now down to a best of 3, as it is 1-1 between Royal Give Up and Edward Gaming. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
蓝 buff、红 buff、大龙、冠军，我全都要。我会上场，给予对手致命一击。我想要成为 EDG 的未来，我准备好接受这个考验。
我才是游戏的主角。